Hello and welcome to the 5-Year Plan Podcast.
Hey!
Pod 249.
Oh, my favourite bus.
Creeping.
Used to get that to school.
Oh, cool. Where does it go?
We used to go from Tooting Common to Battersea, but
Who knows now?
Goes past my house.
does it?
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh.
Good.
Can it see your house from the end of the avenue?
Oh, yeah.
This pod is sponsored by Vector Printing. For all your printing and embroidery needs, go to vector.co.uk. It's a Vector with a
Hey.
And JCIS, the global research and brand consultancy from South London. Visit jc-is.com.
Only if you want to.
Ooh, different.
It is different.
I like it.
I feel that a square has been circled tonight because John is actually sitting in the Endicott seat.
Yeah.
So that's the seat
First
from
time.
which I will is normally rumbled.
Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. A square has been circled. That's very poetic.
Yeah. Thank you.
That could be an album that Endicott promotes. Kevin Day,
Hello.
how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Sorry, I'm fine. I'm all right. Yeah, sorry.
Good. JCIS, a.k.a. John Curran.
Hello.
How are you?
Yeah, it's good. Good to
to
be
have you
back.
back on the pod.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, top man. And Jesse Boyce.
Present.
Very good. So, let's just crack on with business. That sounds weird. I'll give you a quick running order. In part 1, Palace lost to Chelsea, so we'll talk about that. In part 2, questions from our listeners. In part 3...
Spoiler alert, isn't it?
Well, I mean, most people know, I think, what's going to happen, but I don't know.
They lost.
Feels like a bit of structure, doesn't it?
I've been
part
waiting
four-
for this to...
In part 3, Huddersfield away at the weekend, so we'll talk about that. Very, very, very big game. But let's start with Chelsea at the weekend. Bit of a weird game, Kevin, in that we could have easily lost 4 or 5-1, judging by the first half, and yet we could have easily and probably should have come away with a 2-2 draw.
Well, I'm sure we'll talk about the disallowed goal later on.
We can talk about it now.
In particular.
If you want.
If it had been the other way around, you'd want it disallowed, I think. On first look, you thought, we've been robbed again. But then you can understand why he gave it, and you would think, I think you're better off starting with John because John was very vocal on WhatsApp after that. And as it happens, I entirely agree that it was almost suicidal, not just foolhardy, but suicidal to start with 2 up front. But John was way more articulate about that than I was after the game. So I would suggest that you let.
Wow, you've
And
built
I
this up now.
would suggest you sit back a little bit as well.
Yeah. I didn't even realise I was that bad. That's
were.
concerning. I couldn't understand why we started with 2 up front, and it showed with how it was a bit like the midfield was like a piece of butter, and they just could easily go through MacArthur and Luca. There wasn't the structure there, and I just was really surprised and a little bit disappointed. I thought we could be playing 1 up front, play 5 in the middle, and it would just, I think someone like MacArthur plays so much better if he's got that kind of more attacker role. Mm-hmm. And you could have put Ridderveld in there as well alongside Luca.
Because the option, there aren't, there's no Kabay, so there aren't a lot of options. But Gyro is an option.
There were still options, and you still don't have to play 2 strikers. You don't have to play Sorloth and Benteke. And what's frustrating is that we saw in the second half how once United stepped up a little bit in that game, you saw how impossible it was for us to compete with 2 in midfield against the top team. Mm-hmm. And yet that's how we started. And what slightly annoyed me afterwards was I thought Hodgson's comments were disingenuous, to say the least, when he said, that first half performance, I didn't recognise that first half performance. That wasn't us, but we were much more comfortable in the second half. That was more the Palace I know. It's like, well, I didn't pick the team for the first half, mate.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he got the praises he deserves because immediately afterwards they say, well done, Roy Hodgson, for changing it at half time. So no, don't do it in the first place because it was quite clear that you against that sort of team, and I don't know what it is, but against that sort of team, you can't just play 2 in midfield and we know in the past that we play better when we've got 1 striker.
But it does seem that Roy, reactionary, when he's reacting to things, Jesse, he tends to get it right. Like taking Benteke off, probably the right decision. But why is it that when we start games sometimes, it's not quite learning from previous games?
I think you can trace this back to the Arsenal game when Wilshere got a free ride in the centre circle. I don't think he left the centre circle in that whole game. He was just had the run of it. And we could all see that we gave him too much room. He didn't close down it in the second half, and we lost that game. And then he seemed to learn from it against City. Right, that's okay. Yeah. Against these big teams, we need to put Ridderveld in there, and basically we were the first team to stop them scoring this season. No coincidence.
Yeah.
And also we were on our game. Then we played Arsenal again, and he reverted to type.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did you not learn against City how to deal against the big teams with the players we've got available? And then he's followed up with the same thing again against Chelsea. He just left us too weak in the middle.
Well, because also with John's point as well, as I'd been to see a theatre thing on Saturday evening, so I kept having to step out of the nice bar I was in with all these theatrical people just to read this. You see the steam coming off the phone every time I was on for John. But John's point, I mean, it's reactionary and as in conservative as well, because there's a reason why no one plays 4-4-2 anymore, especially against big teams like that, and especially not that sort of old-fashioned 4-4-2. If you play a 2 with one just behind one who drops back in the midfield, fine, but just... And I'm sure there was one moment, I think, where we actually closed Chelsea down almost on the 6-yard line with Benteke and Sorloth.
Yeah, I mean,
and I'm sure that's what he expected to happen. But the trouble is that even when you do that, it's so easy for them to pass the ball into midfield because they're outnumbered 4-2 at some stage in midfield, and it comes back to that again, that lack of energy. MacArthur hasn't got the same energy that Riedewald has, and when Riedewald came on, he looked quite useful.
Do you think though, JC, it's a case of him now having another striker who obviously is not the same quality as Benteke and hasn't got the experience, but he's now sort of desperate to play as the striker because Benteke is not working, so he's kind of thinking, well, at least if I give this guy alongside Benteke, I might get something out of him. He's just got more options now.
I don't know. I mean, what I've heard all season is Roy likes to play 2 up front. And that makes me, not necessarily just a tactical thing, but that kind of statement makes me feel uncomfortable because it sounds very static. It doesn't sound flexible. And I'm kind of looking back to when we went on that really good run of unbeaten games, and I don't have the stats in front of me, and I should have looked into this, but my hunch is that a lot of those games we started with 2 up front. And we had to revert to then Wilf going out wide in the second because we were chasing the game, and then we got 2 goals or we won in the last minute and it was all exciting. But it was fundamentally because we changed it. We didn't set up right in the first half. And that's happened quite a lot this season, especially since we haven't actually had 2 out-and-out strikers. So, Lampard on BT Sport midweek with, I think it was Real Madrid against Paris Saint-Germain, said Real Madrid did something really clever. They outfoxed them by playing an out-of-date system, 2 up front. Yeah. And it kind of, I went, oh.
If Roy hears that.
But the thing is, you remember we used to talk a lot when we had Murray, and we used to talk about Gale, so it wouldn't be nice to see Murray and Gale maybe start 2 up front when we were struggling for goals. But that's completely different from playing 2 Glenn Murrays up front.
Yeah,
you wouldn't play 2 Glenn Murrays up front. You wouldn't play 2 Dwight Gales up front. But essentially, we're playing 2 old-fashioned centre forwards up front. And
are you not seeing anything in Sorloth and Benteke that makes you think could be a thing?
No. I thought Sorloth. I mean, I'm only talking about seeing at most the extended highlights on Sky, which is half an hour. But I thought Sorloth looked slightly liberated in the second half when he wasn't playing, and he cropped up in. In fact, it's the first time we've seen that. There was a couple of times he cropped up on the right wing, a couple of times on the left. His movement was because he was able to move because he wasn't working around Benteke, and I think one of the options has got to be going back to 1 up front, and that one being Sorloth, and then just see how that goes because he's got to try that option eventually, surely. And then, but again, as you say, second half. Just look much more comfortable. Much more mobile, much more.
This is his first chance to do that. I think now that he's got 2 strikers, he's literally got another striker to replace Benteke in Sorloth, and Wilf's back, and we're led to believe that Loftus-Cheek and Kabay are back. It's his first chance to drop Benteke with a direct like-for-like replacement. Yeah. Sacco wasn't really one of those. Yeah. Either way, definitely needed drug test in the way he was playing for us. It was brilliant the way that he filled in. But I think this is the opportunity. He's not going to have a better kind of justification for dropping him now.
But also the second half, you saw the fullbacks get forward much better than they were doing, and you saw the wide players just dragging Chelsea apart in a way that.
I mean, he did take Benteke off, JC, didn't he? He shows that he can be bold enough to do that. Is this the end of Benteke for now?
There was the rumour this week about Benteke going to China in the summer, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's some legs in that rumour. I think having Benteke on the bench now will be a really positive thing to do for Benteke as well, because now it's almost like this is his chance. I mean, in Benteke's, kind of backing him a little bit since Wickham got injured. He had Fraser Campbell. Yeah, Benteke has played so many games, and you kind of, in this day of modern sports people, you can't do that to a striker. You need some time, and psychologically you need competition. I'll give you an example of the competition I'm talking about. Brighton in the transfer window got 2 strikers. Okay, Glenn Murray starts scoring even more goals.
Yeah,
and he still starts.
Yeah,
right, and that's a good example of the psychological impact that competition can have.
Yeah.
So I do feel for Benteke in that sense.
And we've seen that in other positions, haven't we? PVA and Schlupp throughout the season have been sort of getting the best out of each other, depending on who's playing.
Well,
So
I think also, you can't deny Benteke is a good player. He's having a bad season. It's simple as that. And it's we said in January, maybe he'll score a couple of goals in the last 12 games and maybe he'll score a couple in the last 10. That's not going to happen. And also Sorloth, I thought in the second half looked like he'd already started to come to terms with Premier League football. He looked fitter and stronger, and he's got to take confidence from even though notice disallowed. The fact is he made the space for himself really well, and that was a really good finish. So that's got to be giving some confidence.
And he hit the post as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other thing that, again, you can argue about Hennessey for the first goal. The Palace fans were blaming him for the second goal. Just deluded. That was nowhere. The second goal wasn't his fault. You could argue he was slow to get down for the first goal, but also, I think that John pointed out, and it's only when I went back to watch it again, it was Townsend just let Willian go both times, just basically stopped, and the system he played in the second half, Townsend wouldn't have been able to do that. He just stopped and let him go. So it's like that's.
So who was at fault for the second goal?
Everyone.
Yeah, Roy makes a good point. Every goal has about 3 or 4 mistakes to it, and you can go there. There you go. They're the mistakes.
Yeah,
Benteke's clearly damaged goods. He's got carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. Who knows if he'd put that penalty away, if he would have moved on from there. He scored 2 headers, I think West Ham and Leicester, and you got hopeful that one would just set him off and he'd go on a little run. It didn't happen. It's been really hard to watch.
Leicester, he had a good game all round. That was the other thing. He was bringing other players in. He
got an assist.
Yeah, and he kind of looked. You thought, that's it. Maybe we've turned the corner we're always being asked about. But actually, that's a good. It is slightly painful to watch. You've not just as a Palace fan, but as a human being, you kind of don't want to see him go through that because you wouldn't have any confidence in him. If you offered him a penalty, he wouldn't take. I don't think he would take it now.
I hope not.
No, I mean also because we saw him. We saw last season how good he is. So we all know, and so does he, the heights he can hit. And so it's even more frustrating that he's not doing them. And he seems like a really nice guy as well. Like he seems like a nice young man as well. So you get frustrated for him as a person.
The players obviously like him, and from what I can hear, in his attitude in training is still really good and positive. But the frustrating thing is that I don't think he was outstanding last season. He wasn't. He scored those goals without actually looking brilliant. So which is why you thought, well, this will be the season that we finally get the best out of him. And like every single one of the players must have suffered by going 7 games without a point and without a goal.
But some of them have stepped up, haven't they?
He also had the pens last year before Luca arrived in January. Benteke was the penalty taker, and that's got to have an effect in terms of you get one, go on and get another one. He did that a couple of times.
He still missed a few though, didn't he?
He missed a couple, but
West Ham one in particular.
You can see,
Watford.
I don't think it got spoken about, but his eagerness to take that pen that he missed this season, probably part of him just think they want to get back to what was working for me last year. Yeah. That was good just to keep him ticking over when he wasn't scoring from open play.
Yeah,
actually, that's a good point. I hadn't considered that. Just in terms of his confidence, if he was scoring a penalty every 4 games, that might just give him a little lift. And
I mean, there is one thing that I think if I'm going to be ultra critical, where you've got the likes of Bakary Sacco. He's got a tendency to put a deep cross in. The likes of PVA as well and Schlupp, where Zaha will take it to the line and then maybe cut back, and you got Benteke then standing still. And there is that thing of these big strikers love to run on the ball to be hung up there. And I don't think he's got that enough, actually, in that way. But going back to the point about, he's a nice guy. You know what? I don't want a striker who's a nice guy. I want a dirty, one who knows how to draw those fouls, who winds up the strikers.
Like Glenn Murray.
Well, and beyond. You don't. You want the other teams to actually hate that striker.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the one who will win it for you, who will get the fouls if things aren't going right. And Benteke is nowhere near that.
You can be a nice guy off the pitch and a beast on it.
Yeah.
It's just he's not.
No.
Or the other way around. I don't mind which way it is, as long as it's one or the other.
We've got quite a few questions about Benteke, so I'm just going to chuck them in now, to be honest. This one's from Samir Chamai Saine.
Hi, Sammy.
I apologise again every week. With Benteke with Wickham playing 20 minutes of the under-23s yesterday, Where would Benteke reside in the current pecking order if Wickham returned to full fitness sooner than expected? Which won't happen. But
Benteke playing to his full potential would still be our main striker. It's not logical to think otherwise. It's just at the moment he's not a fully fit Connor Wickham and a fully fit Christian Benteke, both firing on all cylinders. Benteke you'd pick him every time. It's the same with Sorloth.
I think because he's not, this question's come up because he's not firing on all cylinders.
He's a £30 million asset, and you can't. He's still got the right side of his peak.
Yeah, he's likely to be in the Belgian.
How old is he? 27.
The Belgian squad will be one of the best
26,
squads.
I think.
The Belgian squad will be one of the best squads at the World Cup, and he will be in it. Is my guess.
Yeah, but he won't be playing if he's on current form.
I mean, I would say something. I don't know. I've always thought the Wickham's a better finisher than Benteke when I saw him play. I think he's got a better shot on him. I think he's got a good first touch. I haven't really been that impressed with the consistency of Benteke's first touch.
Interesting, yeah.
I'm just going to put it out there.
We haven't seen enough of Wickham,
I mean,
have we?
Wickham has got a bolt of a shot on him.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
we haven't seen enough of him. I definitely agree with that.
Well, the sad fact is that when Wickham got that injury at Swansea, he'd had 2 or 3 games when it looked like he was turning into a Premier League striker.
He scored that goal away at Burnley. It was very nice.
He's only ever played under Pardew, which isn't really sort of
I know what you're saying.
hitting the ground running.
I mean, the thing is, we've got 3 very similar strikers now.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Tall, big.
There's no mobility there.
Yeah.
No.
Because Dwight Gale scored more goals for Newcastle than Benteke scored for us this season, I think.
Well, I think everyone scored more goals for their club.
But he's got 5 or 6 without being a first-choice starter for Newcastle
really
as well.
Playing that well.
Yeah, but Gale is a sort of... Well, we talk week in and week out about squads, but Gale's a sort of player that you really regret losing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it'd be nice if we weren't... I know we bring up Glenn Murray as a kind of like an example of a striker we'd like, but I think it's quite nice if we don't look back and we don't, you know...
I know Murray at the time, I was like 90% of Palace fans, I was perfectly happy to see him go. And I still... slightly bemused as to how well he's doing for Brighton, but his record against the top teams isn't brilliant. Taking away Peter Cech, admitting that he had the worst game he's had in 2 seasons. But Gale, I'm not saying in particular I would want Gale back, but as John said, we've got no plan B as a striker. We've got no one to work with the big striker. We've got no one to change things if the big striker option isn't working.
Was it you that texted me the other day and said you could almost do a Palace 11 of players that we've let go before we should have done?
There was some. No, actually, I think what I text you was something about there was a group of Palace players we let go for different reasons. Who are all playing in Premiership teams above us. Yeah. So Mariappa, Watford, Murray, Balassi, Gale. I think there's maybe one more.
Fonts.
Well, I mean, that was Youngstown. But I mean, since we've been in the Premiership, you know, but since we've been in the Premiership, those players, a lot of us me included, would say, yeah, he has to go because we're going to upgrade. Townsend's an upgrade on Balassi. You know, that kind of. Balassi didn't want to play in the middle. You know, that kind of. But if you look at Mariappa, you look at Gale, they're all playing in teams above us.
And they're doing okay. Like, they're not smashing it, but they're doing okay. Like, they're competent Premier League players. But then it's very difficult. You know, situations change at clubs, don't they? Managers come in, players perform well under some managers, they don't under others. Systems change, changing rooms change. It's very difficult to say if Gale or Murray or whoever, Mariappa was still here, they'd be playing well because...
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
things transient, things change a lot.
That's why I wanted to specify. It wasn't necessarily I was saying we should have Gale here, but that sort of player is somebody that we lack.
Yeah. A couple more Benteke questions for you guys. Sure. Mark Jones.
Hi, Mark.
Says, if we were offered 20 million for Benteke in the summer, would you take it?
Yeah, I think
I think
I would.
I would do.
I would.
I don't understand totally the financial fair play, but I mean, if it's about wages and what people are on, I mean, we'd have to...
Yeah, because you'd be freeing up a lot of wages, wouldn't you?
I'd take it, especially if it was the day after the season ended.
Yeah,
do the transfer business early for once.
How little you know Palace.
I think the China rumour is a pertinent one because I can't imagine any of the clubs that comes up from the Championship won't be able to afford his wages.
Yeah,
none of the top 8 clubs will be queuing up to buy him.
No.
So anything else, I think his own pride wouldn't see him make a sideways move. So I think that's the most.
And no one else in England and current form would want him, would they?
Wouldn't have thought so. The only trouble
mean,
with
he is
China
good,
is that they've really tightened up their rules on the players' wages now, haven't they? So,
have they?
Yeah, really tightened up. So if you offer a player £600,000 a week, you have to offer a local charity, football charity, the same amount of money. So
Well, that's fair.
It's fair.
That's a good idea.
It's fair, but even the richest clubs can't afford £1 million a week for the likes of Benteke. So that
But the relative
daunts
wages
quite-
means he'll probably still be doing all right.
You'd think so, yeah.
Yeah. Panda Arms 101.
Hey.
It says, is it time to knock Benteke on the head, not literally, in brackets, and crack on with Sorloth, Wickham, and promote James Daly?
JD the third.
JD the third. JD Junior.
JD Senior would be a big ask. Well, Wickham's not going to be ready.
No, I mean, it's a surprise seeing him back, actually, because we were sort of all told
It's
from
great.
various
It's-
people at
it's-
the end of the season, probably. But
It's great, but he's not going to... He might get a cameo in the last game of the season if we're already safe.
yeah.
I think it's that level. I think it's no point risking him.
Yeah.
The transfer window ends next season before the season starts.
Oh, yeah.
There's allegedly the World Cup happening. So there are lots of ifs and buts.
Yeah.
So I really think for these next few games, it's just about keeping it steady. Benteke is going to have to feature.
Yeah,
and
but
we
maybe
hope that
less so, maybe more Sorloth.
yeah,
less of
we
Benteke,
hope
but-
that the Zahas, the Loftus-Cheeks, the Campbell, the Kabais play.
You got Fraser Campbell in the brain, haven't
I
you?
know.
I think it's quite
I'm so
interesting.
upset.
It's quite interesting that I think Mamadou Sakho was always, from what I can gather, the sort of player who would always wait for Wilf to be fit so he can come back at the same time and get the reflected glory when things start going well. But I think it's interesting that we seem to suddenly have so many players coming back at the same time, and I'm hoping it's because we were sensible enough not to rush them back in games that Hodgson thought we couldn't win or probably wouldn't win.
That's
I
a
think
good point.
that's
That's a
probably
very
fair,
good point.
And that he was maybe ready to take the hit, and that in a way, if you want to be positive, we've played three of the best teams in the country and lost by a single goal each time. So I'm minded of what you said last time you were on, that you thought we would get no points from those three plus Liverpool, and we all said you were wrong, me particularly, but we still got Liverpool to go. But I think in a way we've almost come out. We're still well in touch. We've still got the easier fixtures to come, and essentially we're going into those last 6 or 7 games with our full squad.
Well, you said we'd definitely be in the bottom 3 come the end of the, in fact, after the Chelsea game.
Yeah.
And you were right. Congratulations. How do you feel about the rest of the season? Seeing as you were on with that.
Yeah.
Is that keeping in check with what you thought was going to happen for the rest of the season?
No, not really. I was beginning to feel really down. But then this week, I think the club played a blinder, actually, on social media. They kind of released the video images of, Ronaldo, Messi, everyone coming back on the training ground. He went, oh my God, I forgot about Loftus-Cheek.
Yeah.
I forgot about
Yeah.
that.
Hello. Huddersfield have been
Yeah.
pretty confused right now.
Yeah, exactly. What, they've actually got a squad to turn up.
I think as well, that second half, because we haven't... There have been moments in each of those games against Tottenham, Man U, and even against Tottenham, we had a couple of decent spells. Against Man U, we were a better team for the first half, arguably for the first hour. Second half against Chelsea, we acquitted ourselves well. So that's got to give some confidence. The difficulty now for Hodgson is he's always said, wait till I've got the full team again. And now there is that pressure to deliver. But it's kind of almost worked out. And again, it's interesting you say that about the club playing a blinder on social media, because I just feel this... talking to a lot of Palace fans this week, it feels like there's a sort of logjam disappeared, if you see what I mean. Fans seem to have taken a deep breath this week and gone, actually, it's not as bad as,
I think
we
so.
thought it was.
And I've done that as well.
Because after the Everton game, I was quite depressed. After the Man U game, I was really depressed. Now, but I just feel like, no, I think we'll be fine. Looking at...
Is that because other teams, West Ham, for example, are kind of imploding big
No, I
time?
think it's because we're still, there's 2 out of 8 teams will go down, and we're still one of those 8 teams. And I think there was that fear that we could have been 3 or 4 points behind now instead of 1. And you look at your Southampton's fixture list is really, really hard. Mm-hmm. Huddersfield have got the top 4 in their last 4 games. Stoke have got really difficult games. West Ham, it's going to be really interesting to see how they respond to that, because they're toxic at the moment. Swansea are still well in it. So it's just, and you look at our fixtures, and every other club in the bottom half would take our fixture list rather than theirs.
I think what you say about a logjam is actually really interesting, because I think if you look at it, Loftus-Cheek couldn't have played against Chelsea anyway.
Yeah.
And miraculously turns up at the training ground the day after that game. We probably could have come out a week before. Or, it just feels like there's part of Roy. He's played it quite, apart from Sakho and his mysterious absence. He's given Wilf a half, so he's ready for Huddersfield. He's not going to be too rusty when he plays. So it feels like he's targeted these fixtures, right?
Yeah.
And just thought, right, it's a bonus for getting anything from Chelsea, United and Spurs. Let's save anyone who's a slight risk until Huddersfield. And hence the logjam.
Yeah, and that's what you really hope has happened.
Yeah,
It's not a coincidence, because then you go, well, actually, that's very grown up for us. But it does feel that way.
The social media team is very prepared.
But exactly, the way the club have talked about it, the way it's happened, you do feel like it's got to be more than coincidence that suddenly we go out to Huddersfield with, Puncheon notwithstanding, Wickham notwithstanding, but with all the players you'd want to be fit. You've still got Fossey Mensah, who didn't feature on Saturday, so you've suddenly got options, and it's
going to be a very strong bench, actually.
Which compared to previous weeks, it hasn't been. We've looked at the bench in the last few weeks, and it's been a bit worrying. Yeah. Who do you bring on?
Well, also, to be fair, even Lee looked in the highlights that I saw. Even Lee looked mobile and energetic when he came on. Yeah, so again, that's another.
Just on Benteke, I think that when you think about it, when does he ever create any goals for himself? Not since the Villa days did he suddenly sort of outmuscle people with a slightly Drogba-esque and bury things. He needs it on a plate. And he's done that for us when Townsend has given him service. Remember Everton away last year when we were 1-1 and he buried an amazing header in the corner. The 2 goals he scored this year, both from Townsend crosses. Yeah. I feel like I remember the Spurs game, there was an opportunity where Townsend cut inside and he sort of put a bit of a lame shot into the keeper when Benteke and Sorloth were on the back post. It just feels like if you expect Benteke to score, he does need it on a plate. Like he has to go all out to service him.
The only goal that he scored that hasn't been set up by a Palace player was when Cedric against Southampton passed it to Fraser Forster and he completely missed it. Yeah. And then Benteke kicked it in. But otherwise, so he's just backing up your point.
Yeah, but he still has a part to play, as John said. And if it is going to be anything that's effective, he's not scoring, he's not taking the spot kicks. It needs to be on his head.
Welcome back to the 5-Year Plan Podcast.
Hey.
Pod 249, sponsored by Vector Printing. For your printing embroidery needs, go to vector.co.uk. It's Vector with a
Okay.
And JCIS, the global research and brand consultancy from South London. Visit jc-is.com.
I will. We will. We all will.
Bit rude.
We'll see you there.
We're on our way.
See you there.
Also, that's the first time I've ever heard you do a proper glottal stop like South when you're in 249.
249.
What do you call it? Normally a glottal stop when you don't pronounce it. When you say butter rather than butter.
Well, if you talk to my mum, Mrs. Daly, she's got a name, Deborah. She thinks Deborah
Daly.
Deborah Daly, yeah.
Oh, Deborah Daly.
She thinks I always drop my T's. I mean,
you don't.
No, I think it's a bit of a 50-50.
No, it's not.
50-50. Anyway, let's crack on with questions from our listeners. The first question comes from Simon Quick.
Hi, Simon.
He says, any advice for dealing with hope? Up and down like a yo-yo, and it looks like it will go down to the wire. I know this is the life of a Palace fan, but as I get older, this isn't good for my blood pressure.
Do you know what I thought? I had to catch myself on the other day, being a middle-aged man, like, explaining to somebody who had no idea. It's like, I said, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I was just working out the fixtures, and you just go through your whole day. You try and get distracted because otherwise, it just creeps into your head. You just go, well, if they beat them and they beat, but it's still in our hands basically with the teams we got to play, and I just think, I suppose it is remarkable that we are where we are, as Roy Hodgson keeps pointing out, considering how badly we started. But we were 13th at one time. So,
do you have any mechanisms for dealing with the hope, or to get distractions, or
no?
No, but we shouldn't be taking. But you, of all people, know. I mean, you've got a broad spectrum. You've led a cosmopolitan lifestyle.
Yeah,
we shouldn't be. We shouldn't be taking. But do you know what I mean? There should be more things than that. We should be going. Oh, well, if we're playing new teams next season, that's fine. But I just already.
I'm engrossed with the Russian spy story. I mean, as a means of. Actually, I feel.
But even then, you think who did he think would stay up?
Exactly.
Was he looking at the table?
His thoughts on Benteke.
Exactly. He could have told us. How rude, you know. I'm feeling for my son Dexter, who's doing his revision for his GCSEs. So he's got that to deal with, plus Palace.
You need the outlet. Yeah.
So we've got one. It's double RE revision, and we just try and go into some biblical meaning of hope.
I always say that supporting Palace is good training for life. Because you as soon as you think it's all good, something else might happen, and just when you think there's despair, something like the Hillsborough win in 2010 happens. So
true.
But
good training for life.
We'll find the positives, whatever happens. We'll be really, really cross for a week, and then you'll go, oh.
Well, and also we'll still be here podding about it as well.
And we'll still be Palace fans. Like I always say, we've drawn in the raffle of life. We've got a winning ticket.
We've got a good ticket.
Do you know,
like that.
we're going to be okay.
I think we are.
I've got that. I'm in a good mood now for the first time since
You
1980.
mean this season, not
this.
in life
But
in general.
isn't that funny how that's just seems to, after we talked about this after the Everton game, everyone seemed to have their wobble. After the Everton game, everyone was going, "Oh, we've blown it. We're stuffed." And now after this weekend, for some reason, everyone's kind of going, "Oh no, there's glimpses of." And I hate the sun, so I don't really want to see glimpses of sunlight. But I just feel we will be fine all of a sudden.
I think as well, back to the logjam analogy. I think that the last 3 games there was a bit of blind faith rather than hope, but now there's kind of hope with realistic expectation that we're going to be a bit more capable. So whilst the support will be the same or slightly better, the team should know that they're actually capable of beating these teams now.
Well, also, I mean, for all that, we shouldn't have got into a situation where we're a one-player team. That player's back now, and you could see what a difference he made in the second half, and you could see the players are lifted by it.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure we're not a one-player team in the future, but if he's back and playing well, and also if you look at the fixtures we've got, I think most people are saying 36 points should keep us up. 37 probably guarantee it, according to all the BBC's predictions. If
3 wins, 1 draw,
and if we can't get 5 points from the 4 home games that we've got, and we can't get 4 points from the 4 away games, then we don't deserve to stay up.
Well, exactly. But just on Wilf, I've got a question from Ian Crombie.
Hi, Ian.
He says, given our stats without Wilf, are we a one-man team? And if so, how on earth has that been allowed to happen?
Well, I would refer him to previous pods because we've talked about it at length on the previous pods. How has it been allowed to happen?
It's a really fair question, isn't it?
I don't know how it. I don't know. I think we possibly underestimate how good Wilf is, and we expect other players to be as good as he is. And I think because he's not playing for England, because Southgate's an idiot, we kind of sort of don't give Wilf the credit he is for being such a good player, but. Just sort of cross your fingers and hope that he keeps fit for the rest of the games, and then we can deal with that issue next season, basically.
I agree with you. It's no point even, even trying to, I mean, poor little Frank de Boer tried to do it on BT Sport, but we won't go there. But he tried to do a lot, but we haven't mentioned him yet. Yeah. But I agree with Kev. I am going to stop talking about Palace being a one-man team now until the end of the season. Yeah. And then we can get post-it notes and flip charts and spend a day on it. Because
there are more important things at hand.
Totally.
And also because he's back, and let's keep him fit. Let's hope John Moss isn't the referee against Huddersfield on Saturday and he doesn't get battered from pillar to post.
Who is the ref? Mike Dean.
Mike Dean. Great, that's good news. That's really good news.
I think.
But also you saw, I mean, Wilf, the goal we did score, that's the sort of football we haven't played for 3 or 4 games. Yeah. And also, we've talked about the players know the stats. The players go on the pitch knowing that they don't win without Wilf. And then they go on the pitch with Wilf, they're going to be expecting to win. It's that sort of 5%. Huddersfield fans will be really, really disappointed that he's fit.
Yeah. If you go back to what was the phrase? How's it been allowed to happen? I think I was sort of really keeping a keen eye on the situation as soon as Allardyce went. Just because Silva suddenly became favourite and odds on, that fell through. And in those 3 or 4 weeks before De Boer was appointed, we gave Delaney another year contract. We let Campbell go, and we bet all our budget, or at least the budget to pay for another player's wages, on Wilf's extended contract. But there was no manager in place when that happened. And so, if you're thinking about how is it allowed to happen, I think a few things happened in those 3 or 4 weeks that maybe it might have been slightly different if Allardyce was still in place or a new manager was in earlier. But I think that I said it last week. When Wilf gets injured, there isn't a like-for-like replacement. There's a Norwegian guy who's been with us for 2 weeks suddenly playing in his position, and there's no. When we signed Townsend, we had Balassi and Zaha. We should never have weakened that sort of 3 spots against 2. Competition for places. Someone gets injured. You've got someone strong enough to come in. Yeah. That's realistically what a Premier League team should be set up like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I said I wasn't going to mention it, but now you got me going, so I'm in, right? It isn't just the like for like. There can't be a like for Wilf, right? Yeah. Apart from the Pope, right? It's exactly that. But the thing is, it isn't just about if Wilf doesn't play, we don't win. it's the team looks completely different.
Yeah.
Townsend doesn't play. He runs his socks off,
Yeah.
but he doesn't play. Wilf plays, Townsend plays.
Yeah.
You know, and this is my big concern. It isn't just, he's kind of got a spirit, something more than human that goes into every single player when he's on the pitch. And if he isn't on it, that spirit isn't
He's a
there.
talisman.
But
Yeah.
then,
Well,
you sh-
but
but then-
also I think the other, sorry, Jesse, but I can't remember who made the point. It's a Chelsea mate of mine. It's like if you support Chelsea, Arsenal, Man United, Man City, Liverpool, of course you're going to say, how is that allowed to happen? Because you've got 3 or 4 players that are world class. His point was, you look at the bottom half of the table, maybe West Ham with an Arnautovic, but you look at any of the clubs down there, you go, well, where's their Wilf Zaha? Where's their, every single player, every single team down there would go, I wish we had one player that we could say we can't win without.
Yeah.
Because he would walk into every other team outside the top 4. So you could say we're lucky to have a Wilf full stop.
We are.
Totally.
Definitely. We're lucky to have Wilf.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
also,
just-
and how good how his attitude and his spirit is just exemplary.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And it's everything that John said is fact. Like, it's not even you can't even say that it's a biased Palace opinion. His contribution is something any other team in the division could do with. But I think that you're left in a situation where when he's injured, you've got another recognised winger as in Lee who won't get played. And the disparity between his replacement in sort of positional terms is so big that he doesn't get played. He puts the striker out on the left who's just joined us. So we shouldn't be in a situation where there's nothing even close to filling in for him when he can't play.
I think it was about 8:45 on Saturday evening. It was John, I think it was WhatsApp number 14.
Right for me, right?
Which was basically, why haven't we got like for like? Why are we not? If we lose a winger, why are we not putting a winger? Even if he's not as good, even if he's nowhere near as good, why are we not replacing Zaha with
championing Chungy?
Well, whatever it
on
is,
the back of the famous, now famous Andy Sells, who
Adam Sells.
Adam, who said after the Everton game that he said it was unpopular, but you have to play the ball carrier. And we lost those games, so you might as well lose the games playing the right players in the right position.
Agreed.
Right?
Because also you wouldn't do it in any other position. If you lose a centre back, if you've got a centre back available, you'll put him in rather than try and crowbar a right back in or whatever. It's the same as centre midfield player. You wouldn't put a Patrick Van Aanholt in if Luca was injured. So why in that position is it different when you have got Lee, even in terms of shape and balance?
Yeah.
Because you can't argue that Sorloth's going to offer more as a left winger than Lee is.
Just on Wilf though. Finally, from the way we're talking about him, and we all sort of know this in a way, we're looking at one of Palace's greatest, if not greatest ever player, right now in our team. Is that fair to say? But bearing in mind the impact and the talismanic kind of influence he has on the team, I think he might be our greatest ever player.
Well, given the fact we've never won the thing, and therefore that won't look at anything through those lenses to say Ian Wright scored the goal that won us the FA Cup. We haven't got anything that's in the same way that Maradona is always going to be a bit messy because he won the World Cup.
Yeah.
We haven't got anything on relative on a Palace level. But what he has done, he's helped us stand in the Premier League for 5 years.
Yeah.
Without him, we wouldn't have done.
He
would
got
we?
us there as well.
I think in years to, considering he's from where he's from, the personal struggles, family struggles he had, the quality of player he is, and I think you'd have to say at this given moment he'd be in any all-time Palace 11. Ian Wright is arguably the only direct comparison in terms of his impact, but I don't think even Ian Wright has the same sort of emotional feeling for us because of where Wilf came from and what Ian Wright did afterwards.
So you can kind of make that decision based on Wilf's goal celebrations.
Yeah.
They're so kind of they're so chaotic because he's just so in love with scoring for Palace.
Yeah.
And we have to, like on the world stage now, football, if you're going to score goals and you're a skillful player, at least have a goal celebration that, some computer game can copy and use your brand. It's your brand.
Yeah.
Benteke's the prime at that, right? But
When he scores.
Zaha just can't. He is red and blue, right? And that's special. For me, I've seen Kenny play, Wright, Vince Hilaire, all these players that I loved as a kid. This guy is beyond, he's amazing.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit old. I saw Don Rogers and people like that, but Wilf is up there.
Yeah.
And in fact, I love Wilf so much that if we stay up, I would quite like Wilf to get a chance to play for a team where he could win something, because I would hate for him to end up like Matt Le Tissier, where he stays with us and he becomes the biggest ever Palace icon, but he doesn't win anything.
But Matt Letizia is perfectly happy with that. And it
Yeah,
always says
and
he'd never
Wilf maybe as well.
regretted
Yeah, and
never
Wilf
leaving.
maybe as well. But because England mishandled Wilf so badly, and I'm not suggesting England would ever win the World Cup with Wilf in it, but he's not going to win. Well, it might win the African Cup of Nations, which would be brilliant. But you'd love to see Wilf for his own benefit. You'd love to see him rewarded with some sort of tangible medal or trophy. Or
He's definitely he's earned that right, hasn't he?
I think so. But also, I think if you spoke to Wilf, I don't think he even waited. I think he would, if you promised success for Palace, he'd stay. Yeah. That's again one of the reasons why you love him so much. And it might be that he's one of those players that wouldn't be as good for another team. But whatever, I think, as John said, and we did say we weren't going to talk about it, but we've now talked about it for quite some time. Let's just be thankful, keep our fingers crossed that he's fit for the last. Because also, I mean, I would go so far as to say against Tottenham, Chelsea, Man U, if Wilf was playing, we probably would have got.
Oh,
2
yeah, I think
points
we'd have
from
got
those
something.
games.
We'd have probably got something.
And against Liverpool, we got a much better chance of getting.
We would have beat
something.
United.
I think we probably would because he would give them so many problems. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to some more questions. This one is from Julian Chenery.
Hi, Julian.
Hi, Julian.
Absolutely top man. So he sent me an article.
Absolutely top man, says Leslie Phillips.
He's a great guy.
He is. That's the way you said it. Absolutely top man.
Top man. He sent me an article written by a West Ham fan.
Article. Well, you do what you
He
are.
sent me an article written by a West Ham fan about their issues at the moment, and off the back of that, I mean, I read like half of it. It was quite long. He says how I was at work.
It's a damning indictment of modern education. I read half of it. It's quite long.
I read the first half. It was very good. I imagine the second half is also very good. He says, how valuable do the panel think our fan base are to the club and team in this relegation dogfight, not just the brilliantly noisy ones? And off the back of that, another question as well. When clubs are in turmoil, it always affects the team, and relegation is usually the outcome. Do the panel think West Ham are in trouble? What do you think of them?
I think, to answer the question about whether West Ham are in trouble, I think, yes, they are, because the players will react to that. And I think, my hope is that players will kind of go, well, sod you then, if that's your attitude. And I think, as much as the West Ham management will be saying to them, well, they're only a minority of fans, they'll be going, well, what's the point if they're not going to get behind this, if they're going to react like that? The West Ham situation is a longer term one. They didn't want to leave Upton Park or the Bowling Ground or whatever they decided to call it, and it now turns out there was no particular reason for them leaving it, and the new ground isn't quite right, and they haven't played particularly well, and Moyes was never a particularly good fit for West Ham. I can't. The question about the fan base is a sort of deeper one to answer, because I can't imagine being that angry that I would run onto the pitch.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have the energy for a start, but I can't imagine being, because I think like everybody around this table, when I've been really, really angry, you wait till after the game before you articulate it, and you tend to articulate it in the pub rather than to.
But I was thinking the
to the
same
players,
thing.
but-
I was thinking, well, look, you'd get Palace fans be angry, but no one would do that. But then I remembered the guy that confronted Delaney against
That's
Sunderland.
different. I mean, that's one fan.
I know, it's one- I understand it's one
I
fan,
think
yeah.
the thing in the, because what's interesting with West Ham as well is that they always quite liked Sullivan, Gold, Brady, and whatever you thought about Sullivan, Gold, and Brady as individuals, and I've met all of them, and two of them aren't particularly nice people. One of them, but they kind of fitted West Ham, and they did a good job for West Ham in terms of the finances of the club and the business of the club. They overreached themselves with the new ground. But that, for me, that seemed orchestrated. The demonstration in front of the director's box seemed like that seemed like it was going to happen whatever happened on the pitch. That didn't seem like a spontaneous demonstration. That seemed like they would planned, and you see the way some of them were filming it and the way it was just that seemed really odd. But I think it has to have a negative impact on the team. It has to, and you could see how upset Noble was afterwards, and he was being kept away from fans when they were walking off. And you have to hope. What I say, you have to hope they're going to go. Well, why should we give 100% if you're not going to? And it's what you want is to see. As a mate of mine is a West Ham season ticket holder, we talked about before, Mark Webster. He's like he just thinks that from now on the West Ham players will be playing for contracts at other clubs.
Yeah,
rather than playing to keep West Ham up.
Yeah.
And to be fair, you couldn't blame them if they did, because it's not the first time. I mean, the support hasn't been brilliant, and it's difficult at that stadium because it's not a football stadium. Simple as that.
Yeah, I mean the thing is when the chips are down at some clubs that happens. When the chips are down at Palace, we seem to go into this sort of siege mentality, John, don't we? We just sort of crack on with it, and if anything, the atmosphere gets better.
So yeah, I mean, back to the kind of that question about Palace fans with these last few games. I mean, yeah. I mean, we are not going to be that 12th person, right? But we make a noise. The commentators on the radio, on the television, reference the noise, and they will do. And I bet you they will do with the remaining 4 home games. And that's really important. That gets out. And the journalists in the papers will do the same thing. And it isn't just about the noise on the pitch. It's the whole feeling we give off. So I mean, I totally agree. It's a given. I know we can't assume it, but it will be. That's Palace. We've been in administration twice, right? The Palace fans were there. We have to remember that. I do think that the wonderful thing about football, right, is that about West Ham and things like that. In relation to Palace, we can't assume that being a football fan has to be a universal way of doing. Okay, and I know that a lot of people criticised Sunderland last year for walking out, and I've got mates who are Sunderland fans, and I've been up to Sunderland to do work quite a lot, and that city's had its hard ripped for years and years and years through politics and economics. And if any Sunderland fan wants to walk out, I have nothing against them. I really don't. So I think the one thing is, us as Palace fans, we have our own unique identity. I wouldn't want anyone to have any of that identity.
Well, there's two things. I think the difference. I was so angry after the Man U game, so angry, to the extent that there was a couple of guys behind this who I think were Swedish or Norwegian older guys who celebrated when Man U scored. And then one of them said to me, "Oh, it was a great game, wasn't it?" And I just went, "Mate, you're so lucky. We're good fans." And he looked a bit crestfallen, and I was so upset at having upset him that even about an hour later, I was saying I'm going to go back to the ground and see if I can find him to apologise. I genuinely was upset. But the West Ham thing is what was interesting is that so many West Ham fans said they were playing quite well. And there was no lack of effort, and the goal, it was a great goal from Burnley. So that's why it comes back to you think that was a deliberate, orchestrated thing, because he said most West Ham fans were like, "Oh,
they can't stop that as well."
No, of course they can't stop it. And it wasn't like the players gave up. It was just like Burnley stepped up. Yes, West Ham missed chances, but there was no lack of effort. There's no lack of commitment. So you kind of think, are there some fans who just want to undermine it?
I mean, they haven't been. I do without sort of dwelling on West Ham too much, I do wonder if Palace moved from Selhurst, they knocked Selhurst down for housing, they moved us to an athletics stadium that wasn't built for football a few miles away, and then the team started struggling and they brought in new manager. We would be getting more frustrated than a few.
You sold your star in Payet. They sold him for big money.
And also, you get a manager in that West Ham fans think instinctively it's like Allardyce. When they brought Allardyce in, for whatever reason, whether you think that's valid or not, he's not the sort of manager they want. But also, it's simple. It's like with West Ham, one of the things they're most cross about is they can never have a Boxing Day game at home because of Westfields.
The January sales.
And the police have told them that they can't have a New Year's Day game or whatever it is, but certainly can't have a Boxing Day game at home. And that's the sort of thing that fans are furious about. And the fact is, West Ham, also Upton Park. I used to hate going there as an away fan, but you go there for games when you're not a fan of either team. The hairs on the back of your head go up. It's a fantastic place to watch football, especially with an evening game. And the Olympic Stadium simply isn't. And simple things like there's nowhere for them to drink before a game. And suddenly they go from being fans to being customers and clients. And West Ham clearly haven't managed that very well. And we saw that at the very start of the season when they put in people in seats next to people who didn't want it. It's like the club clearly haven't managed it and assumed they made assumptions about their fan base. And West Ham, of course, they're a bigger club than us, but I think if you look at most of their fan base, they will be from Essex and originally from the East End of London, like most of our fans are. They're a locally based club. They're not an Arsenal or a Chelsea who are going to make a lot of money from foreign fans or selling naming rights or whatever. But the board seemed to ignore that completely. And I thought it was really telling that the one person left in the director's box was Trevor Brooking. And I really admire him for that as well.
He was collecting all the spare change that was being
whatever reason, and also because you could kind of see the shamefaced looks of some of the West Ham fans when they're going, "Oh, hang on, what are we doing here?"
I do as funny as the protests were, and some old boy getting the corner flag and trying to put it in the centre circle. I do feel sorry for West Ham. I do feel sorry for their fans.
They rode their luck because the board they just changed so much at once. Put London on their badge.
And it shouldn't have been. It should have. They wanted East London, right? I know that from a branding point of view. That's what they
there was about 5 to 10 things they did all at once, and they needed it all to go for them and to work to pull it off. So, and you can see that our club has looked at what Liverpool's done with Anfield and the way they redeveloped that stand. Yeah. We're going to do it the same way, and they've it's not gone amiss to see how to do it and how not to do it.
Because West Ham are a club that are particularly proud of their working class roots, and if you go into the club, you will see pictures of the old Thames Ironworks teams. You will see the history of the club, and it's like we were from the docks and the ironworks, and you'll see pictures of Bobby Moore everywhere. And they're a club that do pay more than lip service to that, and then suddenly they threw all that out of the window to become this brand new modern entity. And it's like you have to bring the fans with you. And I mean, John, this is John's world, his business. He knows about branding and about change, and he's told us things that we wouldn't understand, and it's clear that they've mismanaged it. And you like to think the parish has learnt lessons in the past. Even simple things like the new badge, when he decided not to do the new badge and have a vote on that, it's like you can't imagine West Ham.
It's really good.
Yeah, exactly. But you can't imagine West Ham even considering that.
Well, speaking. Okay, sorry.
So just one point on that, because I think the West Ham thing is also. I was going to say we could all be like a Greek owner of a football team with a gun in our back pocket. Well, it would be great.
Protecting
but
his
I think there is this. What I'm feeling coming from my background, Mark, is that we are seeing a shift. Right, we're seeing a shift from football now becoming an entertainment game and a family entertainment where you can have kids who support the club who've got posters up wanting the opposite team's top. Now for guys like us, that makes our stomachs go upside down. And it was almost like feels like it's symbolic what was happening in West Ham. It's the last bastion of that kind of the tribal footballness as what we were all brought up with, right? And are we going to see that now go?
But do you think Palace are holding on to that, aren't they?
I think
we are. But you hear Marina going, "It's a beautiful ground." Yeah. But that's changing. That beautiful ground won't be that beautiful ground.
Well, it's going to be
changing. It's going to be something else,
isn't it?
Exactly.
But that's not as radical a change as the change was for West Ham.
It's the evolution, revolution.
It's evolution. It's evolution.
And the fact is, much as I love Selhurst Park, something's got to be done about the half away as well. We know that. But I mean, my guess is that for West Ham's next home game, there's going to be huge gaps where there are people not taking their kids and not taking the risk because the atmosphere is toxic there. And I think coming back to the original question, it has to go against them. I think really.
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah. Julian.
Speaking on sort of changes and stuff, we have a question from Robbie Scotcher.
Hi, Robbie.
Hello, Robbie.
Another theatrical person doing question.
Is he?
Yeah, he's an actor. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Nice guy. I met him in Parsons. Anyway, he says, how do you... Not that I need to qualify.
Was he researching a part?
Maybe. He says, how do you feel about Selhurst Park potentially being branded? It will always be Selhurst to me, but the Sainsbury's Stadium, for instance, will get embarrassing. I think there's been some rumours this week potentially of naming rights.
The Standard had an article with Parish talking about it, saying that he didn't think the Palace faithful would have a problem with it if the association was right, which then made me think about Mamba X and something slightly dubious in how that really looks.
Those videos.
Which disappeared off YouTube.
Shows how showbiz. The Yellow and Green, who were they 2 seasons ago? Sponsors.
Yellow and Green?
Yeah.
Nutella.
Oh, Nutella, yeah. That didn't particularly... Just the change of colour didn't go down particularly.
Yeah, true.
I think I'd be amazed if Sainsbury's, from what Steve Parish has talked about in the past about their relationship with Sainsbury's...
Welcome back to the 5-Year Plan Podcast.
Hey!
Pod 249, sponsored by Vector Printing for your print embroidery needs. Go to vector.co.uk, that's Vector with a...
Okay.
And JCIS, global research and brand consultancy from South London. Visit jc-is.com.
I will.
Very nice indeed. Okay, so...
Well, you live there, so you kind of...
Well, I don't live in the
in
the web.
In the web.
Yeah, that's good.
In many ways, we all
calling
do.
you John Curran.
That's a good one.
Okay, so Huddersfield on Saturday, big game for Palace. Had a few questions around it, and the first one comes from Michael Hart.
Hi, Michael.
He says, is it time to bring in Cavalieri for the Huddersfield game?
He won't.
Right.
Whether it's time, I think that would be a fairly... Roy's a conservative manager. He hasn't dropped Benteke under any circumstances. I suspect that Cavalieri is brought in as backup rather than as first choice. I think that would be a very drastic decision for Roy to make, especially with so many players hopefully coming back. Mm-hmm. I don't think.
I think he'll stick with him, but
Yeah.
I think he has to. I mean, I'm thinking if Sacco starts, I think Hennessey plays better with Sacco in front of him.
Yeah, I agree.
If I was Roy, I'd be having a little word with Tompkins
Yeah.
and PVA and saying what's it like at the moment.
Right.
What's that relationship like?
Right, okay.
And get that little feel from it. But I would, again, it's how many games? 7 games? 8 games?
yeah.
I would seriously not rock the boat apart from dropping Benteke.
Yeah, I think his reluctance to put subs on is indicative of his reluctance to change the lineup. And I think as the season goes on, the less inclined he is to make drastic changes.
I don't know the details of Cavalieri's contract, but I'd be fairly surprised if he was even with us next season, to be honest.
But
I don't.
there'll be other keepers coming in.
Yeah.
Well, we've got one coming, haven't we?
Yeah. Well, hopefully, yeah.
Wherever
If
his
we
name
stay
is.
up.
Yeah.
If we stay up.
Yeah. But I don't think.
Caveat.
Whether it's time or not, it's not going to happen.
Okay. Tommy Smith
Hi, Tommy.
To me.
says, in what minute of Saturday's game at Huddersfield will we see the first 2-footed lunge at Wilf?
Good question.
That's a good question, because I've been joking about this ever since the start of the season, because I interviewed John Moss 2 days before the Palace Huddersfield game and made fairly light-hearted comments about the lack of protection for Wilf, and then the first 20 minutes of that game Wilf got battered, completely battered. There was no protection whatsoever. And whether it was deliberate, I don't suggest it was deliberate, the target on Huddersfield's part, but John Moss took way too long to take that on board. I think it's very good news that Mike Dean's the ref on Saturday, because he's particularly hot on diving, but he's old school. Him and Atkinson are the best referees in the Premier League.
Atkinson.
And I think what you hope is that psychologically Wilf, and he didn't look like it in the second half, Wilf won't pull out of a challenge. And if Huddersfield choose to do that, I think we've got a referee that will spot that happening. I don't think that Huddersfield are a team that will try and do that.
No, the only worry is, John, that they did it on the first game of the season and it worked massively in their favour. So
yeah, but
have they got a reputation this
No,
season
not
of going
at
to
all.
every
No,
single
no,
team
no,
and trying to hack them down?
and also circumstances were so different in the first
They
game
were
of the
so up
season
for
as
it,
well.
weren't
They were
True.
full of adrenaline and full of, and I think Huddersfield. What's in our favour is, apart from the fact we've got players back, is that Huddersfield will know they've got those. Yeah, they've got to work. The last 4 games of the season are very, very difficult for them to get any points out of. So they know the pressure is on them in the next 4 games to get the 7 or 8 points that will probably be enough to keep them up, and that should play in our favour. And I think also their inability to beat a 10-man Swansea. I mean, Swansea were down to 10 men from 10 or 11 minutes.
10 minutes in, yeah.
And they couldn't beat them, so that's going to be playing on them, the pressure to win at home. So I'm actually quite pleased that our next game's away rather than home. And I'm quite pleased we got a win. And also, we shouldn't look upon this as it's not a must-win game. I think it will be taken, if we don't win it, it will take Huddersfield out of the group of teams that we can't catch, but that still leaves us with 3 or 4 teams that we can.
Yeah.
That we can.
I know
So,
Roy wasn't here on that opening day, but you've got to think it was so obvious that it was a slight injustice. What Wilf experienced, that Zanka was just all over him.
Yeah.
That you got to think that something will be said in the build-up, either to the 4th official or you've got to be transmitted down from people who were here, like the board, into Roy, into them. But they're a different team. They're slightly wounded. They've had a reality check. We knew they would get one.
Yeah.
But what does worry me is that Mounier guy who scored 2 headers against us, was it?
Yeah.
On the opening day. He's went missing all season. And now he's come back. He's scored recently.
Yeah.
He had 8 chances, 8 shots on goal against Swansea.
Yeah.
Didn't put one of them away.
Well, that whole day, I think 23.
Yeah.
Didn't
They had 30 shots on the goal.
Was it 30 in the end?
81% possession.
Wow, was it?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I think Wilf will be. We know what he's like. Wilf will want to show them that he's a better player than they are.
Definitely. And Wolf, like you said, doesn't shirk a tackle anyway.
No.
Like he's, regardless of what happened on the opening day of the season. But just on formation then, John Hunter
Hi, John.
says, assuming we go back to 4-5-1 for Huddersfield, Sorloth or Benteke up front, JC?
I would go with Sorloth. I would go with him. I think he has got the energy we want. He's got the kind of raw hunger that Benteke has shown in glimpses. I think Benteke could do with another half on the bench.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's
I think
yeah.
he hit the post. He finished that game strong. Disallowed goal is going to make him feel that he's sort of getting closer.
Yeah.
And it's just got to that point, isn't it?
I agree with that completely, but I'm not managing the team. So
No.
having said all that, I think Benteke will start as. I think we will start with one striker.
Oh, you don't think we'll stick with 4-4-2?
No, I think we'll start with one striker, and I think Hodgson's logic will be, well, let's see what Benteke can do with Wilf and Townsend back.
I
just think I think Roy's natural instinct is to be conservative, not to take a risk.
I've heard from various people that Roy is not a huge Benteke fan. So I suspect, and taking him off on...
Well, experience would prove otherwise, wouldn't it? I know we've been short of players and options, but...
Agreed. But I thought on Saturday, taking him off at Chelsea at half-time was a bold move.
It was very bold.
For Roy. Big, especially as you're right, he is a
fair
conservative
point.
manager. So I got an inkling he might go with Sorloth and, like you say, give Benteke just another little sort of nod and a little kick up the bum.
Well, he may also decide that Huddersfield aren't Chelsea and play two up front again.
Maybe.
But
I hope not.
But the thing is, that I just don't think that works.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, we haven't seen it really with this season with two strikers up front with Zaha on the wing. That's different. That will be different to see, right? But so far, I don't think two up front has really worked.
No, I agree. Well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Won't we? So, guys, that's the end of the pod.
Right?
Cool.
Are we going to finish this pod without mentioning Zaha's assist?
So, in the Chelsea game.
Yeah.
It was pretty good, right?
Did we not touch that?
I don't think we did specifically,
No,
but
it
that
was very
great.
good.
It was really good.
Yeah, was it no look pass? I
And
think?
it's his second assist of the season.
Well,
Is that
we've
really?
spoken about this. That's incorrect because the metrics are wrong, in my opinion, as to how they measure it. Because there was one against Watford that deflected a tiny bit off of a Watford
It
player.
did deflect.
It wasn't given to him.
Yeah.
It's not given as an assist if it's a deflection.
But also,
Rubbish. Absolute rubbish.
I mean, that's it because PVA was further forward than he would have been in the first half to be there. But
it was
a great assist. It really was a good assist. Absolutely.
And I forgot, but it was him returning to his former club, PVA.
Yeah. Of course, his first club.
for a second, isn't it? It was-
And have Southampton? We're currently 9:00 on Wednesday. Have Southampton appointed Mark Hughes?
Oh, I don't know. I don't believe so, but the latest seems to be that
I hope so.
Because
he is-
the last 10 clubs is a brilliant thing to be. The last 10 clubs to appoint a manager with 8 games to go, 8 of them went down, and the 2 that stayed up were Sunderland both times when they brought Advocar in and they brought Di Canio in.
Okay.
no, they haven't announced anything. So
I was astonished that Southampton were even talking about bringing Hughes in such a shit because they've sacked everybody, haven't they? It's not just.
It's been a good season for British managers, isn't it? Getting jobs in the Premier League.
Yeah.
That's a discussion for another
But
pod.
also, Mark Hughes could relegate 2 teams in the same season, which would take a lot of doing.
Yeah.
Could do.
But I mean, again, these are all things I think in our favour rather than. I think eight games from the end of the season is a big ask to turn that around. West Ham,
with the games they've got.
absolutely, with the away games as
I
well.
agree.
So.
Hasn't worked for Pardew at West Brom. So anyway, that's it. Thanks very much for being on the pod.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Jesse, thanks for being here. Thanks
Thank
for joining us, Kevin.
Welcome.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for listening. We're back with you after that Huddersfield game. So we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye-bye.